Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle Tolzman, and you're listening to the Against All Average podcast, the show where business owners and entrepreneurs come to learn the skills and mindset to lead exceptional lives. Today, I am joined by the one and only Jake. I wish I wasn't balding so I could take my hat off. Rolzman.
Coming up with the new last name. I love it.
Hey, we've got an episode. We've got to make sure that everything is consistent. We got to make sure that the branding is on point. We've got a Tolzman. You're now a Rolzman, and we're gonna bring in a Holzman. This is going to be freaking sweet.
I know. I can't wait. At the beginning, I was kind of feeling like the third wheel with the whole Holzman, Tolzman. But I guess if I'm gonna be Rolzman, I'm fitting right into the face.
Rolzman is kind of, you kind of got the best of all of them, let's be honest. Tolzman means woodman. What does Tolzman mean?
I think it's just entrepreneurial gangster. I'm not sure. I'm not
maybe
sure.
woodman. I build things, foundations.
It's like lawnmower flipper, house flipper, weed whacker extraordinaire. I'm not completely sure, but I think the main theme of Tolzman is somewhere in the entrepreneurial gangster, somewhere in that wavelength.
Rolzman, I can't help but think like, either it's a baller or Rolls Royce or I'm
both.
rolling with the flow. So I kind of feel like you're both gangsta. You're both business gangsta.
They see me rolling, hating. All right.
Hating.
All right. Hey, Jake. I need a new website. Can you hook it up?
I mean, for you, absolutely, I can hook up with a new website. And if for anybody else out there, I'll help you too. But for you, it's definitely going to be more because I know you're a pain in the ass.
God, you suck. All right. I'll plug your sponsor plug anyway, you punk. When you need all things digital, looking their best, call our friends at Fame Pro Services. Our friends will give you the Against All Average treatment with a full line of printing services. They'll create you a beautiful website, and they might even teach you something about entrepreneurship. Fame, the trusted partner of the Against All Average podcast. Jake, you ready to roll on this one? We're already getting a little fired up. This even pre-roll. Tammy's already chirping in.
Jake Rolzman is ready to rock the house with Tami and Kyle.
Oh, sick. All right.
Tolzman and Rolzman. You got to go like Tolzman, Rolzman, Holzman.
All right. We've got the Tolzman, Rolzman, Holzman episode today. Our guest is the author of From C Student to the C-Suite. In just 3 days from launch, From C Student to the C-Suite became an Amazon bestseller and was ranked in the top 1% of sales on Amazon. From C Student to the C-Suite is a modern day guide to business and relationships, showing how a girl with straight C's in school, but straight A's in emotional intelligence became savvy in the cutthroat business world. Tami began her career in the entertainment industry as a talent agent, show creator, and executive producer with development deals at NBC, HBO, and the 20th Century Fox. During her time as an executive producer and creator of Super Agent, she discovered a white space for marketing to women through mainstream sports. The opportunity inspired Tami to co-found the Female Fan Group. She segued into a successful career as the EVP of avVenta, a marketing services firm leading global business development, which led to a successful acquisition to Accenture. Shortly after, Tami served as the chief brand officer of the Plastic Bank, a social impact company turning waste into currency. How cool is that? Today, she is an LP and advisor with Halogen Ventures, corporate advisor, executive coach, and motivational speaker. Tami loves to mentor and promote opportunities for women. Tami lives in the Pacific Palisades overlooking the Pacific Ocean, where she can find her hosting friends. Well, you can find her hosting friends while saluting the sun with a cocktail in hand and an ever-present smile on her face. Please welcome to the show, Tami Holzman.
I think that's it. I think we should stop there. Number one. Number two, clearly I need to send you a shorter bio.
Yeah. I was like,
Short versions for every, different things.
I'm guilty. I'll act like I was like really hustling this morning and I was working hard and I had all this going.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no. I just woke up about the crack of 8:20 a.m. I put this up there, did a little copy and pasting. It copy and pasted weird the first time in a picture format. I couldn't edit the font size to make it big enough so that I could read it. And I tried to shorten it. I lost creativity, lost my thought, ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that's my morning, folks.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's how it rolls. All right, Tami, let's let the listeners and viewers learn a little bit about you. Can you take us back to kind of where you grew up, how school was like, what it was like kind of meandering through elementary, middle school, high school, and then we'll kind of get into your career and talk through that.
Okay, let me just get this through just in case I should cuss. I just want to make sure it's okay to cuss.
You're good.
We're good?
You're good. Sometimes we slip as well.
Sometimes it doesn't, but if I know I can't, I just...
Could you really hold it back anyways, Tami? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, can I hold back? Yeah, I could try. I think cussing has served me well, to be honest, in my career, because I do it with enthusiasm. Like, for example, is my client brilliant or are they fucking brilliant? I'm like, you are fucking brilliant. You are brilliant.
Words of emphasis.
Exactly. So I use it as and by the way, it is a language. There's proof that it's a language of intelligence.
Man, I should told my parents that when I was in like 6th and 7th grade. Like, I didn't deserve all of that punishment.
And the bar of soap in your mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm from the Valley. You could take the Valley out of the girl, but you could take the Valley out of the girl, but you can't take the girl out of the Valley, right? So I live in Pacific Palisades, as we just mentioned. I grew up in Chatsworth, otherwise known as the porn capital of the world. Funny enough. I learned that later. And I did grow up there, so I'm fortunate still to have my best friends from nursery school on. I mean, some people ask like what I see as my superpower, my strongest asset, and it's my capability to keep long-term relationships forever. And even when I meet you through business, it's forever. So, I grew up in Chatsworth, and I have a twin brother and I have an older brother. I went through school, and I wasn't like, I would say I was, I felt like I was an average with my personality. And that's what I used to get ahead. Otherwise, I felt like I was sort of average in a lot of ways. I was uncoordinated, so no one wanted me on the sports team. So no lacrosse for me, darling. And I mean, I won best personality, but last to be picked on every sports team. They wanted to hang with me. They just didn't want me on their team.
Were you at least like a good, positive sideline person? Were you not yelling at the refs or getting kicked out of games? Like, there's positives to that.
I didn't like conflict, to be honest. It was actually a good thing for me and a really bad thing for me, like in life, potentially. We can talk about that. I think when you avoid, it's something in my book, actually an ex-boyfriend told me, he's like, you avoid conflict so much that you don't even realize conflict can lead to resolution and it could be better, right? It was such a good lesson. I mean, sometimes you learn so much through your love life. I just keep on learning. Anyway, yes, so I was not like a troublemaker that way. I was actually I was very Lucille Ball growing up. Shenanigans galore, but always really innocent, but always in shenanigans. I mean, if you guys would be my Ethel today, every day someone's my Ethel. It doesn't stop how old you get. I'm still like shenanigan girl.
Yeah, I can relate. I can fully relate.
Mischief with a big heart. So I navigated using my relationship skills, even with the teachers, to get ahead and pass my classes. And I don't know if it was a combination of in childhood just being not stimulated in school. And I think everyone learns differently. It's definitely, I know you're a teacher, but it's definitely one of my biggest, pain points looking at the school system now, because I think your jobs are so tough because it's so much more information is given to us that every student really learns differently. So how do you as a teacher today navigate the different attention spans, et cetera, and what people are responding to?
Yeah.
And then, I was, so Chatsworth, I was a ballet girl. And then I had gone off to San Diego State to follow my friends to party. So basically that gave me more EQ, which is what led me to being successful, likable, gathering friends. I barely got through San Diego. I didn't even get through San Diego State. I couldn't get my classes. I was basically taking basket weaving and, drinking beer bongs. And then I transferred to Cal State Northridge to try to finish there. I have so much education and less degrees. And then I learn as I go along today. I have like a master's certificate from the University of Penn in positive psychology. And ironically enough, I could have taught that class. Like I didn't even I was listening because I thought it was interesting, but it was only reinforcing everything I had taught myself over the years.
And was that just from the way that you grew up, the way that you interacted with friends, the person that you were?
Yeah, I think naturally I always led with empathy, and I care so much. I mean, maybe to a fault. I mean, I don't know if there's ever caring too much to a fault, except for you need to give a chance for other people to take care of you, and I feel fortunate enough because I've had such long-term friends. When I need anything, they are there. So.
And Tami, let's talk a little bit about your book that you currently wrote, C Student to the C-Suite, and then let's go into talking a little bit. There you go. There's the copy if you're watching this on YouTube.
I was almost out of books, but I picked them up at my warehouse.
That is a beautiful cover.
Thank you. I wanted it to tell the story because, believe it or not, a lot of people don't know what the C-suite is. So I wanted to show that they are there. They got their titles there. And there I am already causing mischief with a martini in the meeting.
Sitting on the table instead of sitting in your chair, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the book and why did you write it? What drove you to start writing about this story of being a C student and getting to be in the C-suite?
I think what came down to it, when I had left the entertainment business, I had a company that dissolved. It was in sports, and it was devastating because it was supposed to be the next big thing, and really difficult. I mean, if I'm being completely transparent, when you have something that people are so excited about and it's supposed to be the next big thing, and you are, Meg Whitman wants to mentor you, and, you're already, getting early offers when you don't even have completely the concept fleshed out, to have something dissolve and go away when this became your identity. Have you guys ever had something you worked on and then all of a sudden you realize you feel like it's your identity, and without it, you feel like you're nothing?
Yeah, 100%.
Have you guys ever had that happen?
100%. I mean, go ahead, Jake.
Well, yeah, no, it's people Kyle talked about it at a different episode. It's much lesser of scale, but people referred to him as the Muffin Man, right? Like people know you by what you're building. And once that's gone, people are like, oh, wait, who are you?
Yes.
I think in my world as well, being a collegiate athlete, when that goes away and that competitiveness goes away, it just leaves this huge void kind of in your life of wanting to compete, in that identity that you're an athlete, you're a good athlete, and there's so much that comes with it. So there is so much pain and so much, I don't know, just kind of murky waters that you have to get through in those days and weeks and years after those things end, because it was such a huge part of your life. It was sun up to sun down and you're fully invested in it. So I'm sure you were going through some of those similar pains because you were all in, right, Tami?
I was all in. I was all in financially. I had given up my other business. There was potentially so much opportunity with this. We ended up having the crash of 2008, and it was a really crazy time, and we couldn't get our bearings. We ended up dissolving the company, the partnership. And I will tell you, I felt like such a loser. I mean, I felt like such a failure. And I really had a hard time snapping out of it. But what I ended up learning over the course of snapping out of it, and a little bit of reinvention, is that I wasn't a loser. People looked up to me for trying something and going for it and starting a business. People will admire that. But we're so in our own way to see how other people are feeling about us. We're so caught in our own feelings. So, people really admire people that take chances, and they didn't have any change of how they felt about me. Whatever you're doing next, we're all ears. You realize that what you do for your career it's great. I mean, you could do amazing transformational things. On the other side of it, who you are as a person is your character. And I think that we get so lost with the pressures of what we're doing for a living and how people perceive us. We forget that who we are and our identity is who we are as a character.
If you don't mind, let's kind of continue this journey a little bit deeper. I'm sure our listener, we're kind of giving like a little trailer to this business. Would you mind going a little bit deeper into, what are the big things you learned? What are the things hindsight 2020 that you're like, oh crap, I definitely should have done that differently. Maybe kind of get more into the details of that.
Of which company at what time? I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I learned at that time was, it's definitely exciting to have something. My business partner and I at the time, I felt like it was hard to say no to us. We really loved being together. We had so much fun in every meeting. We were like a two-man punch. It's always good to find people that you your business partners with you guys, like your two-man punch. You go, we gotcha. But the one thing I definitely, if I could go back, is we're not expected to know everything. And I felt like at the time, I knew our concept was so strong, but I didn't know so many other things about where we were headed at the time in technology. Ironically enough, I invest in female-founded technology companies today, but I didn't even know enough to answer the questions properly I was being asked. And so I was legitimately faking it. And in hindsight, I would have been better off saying, I don't know the answer. And today I advise female founders, or any other founder for that matter, is you don't have to have the answers, and people respect that. And they say instantly they trust you instead of floundering on an answer you don't know. And they're like, I love her, but she has no idea what she's talking about in this area of conversation. So I would think, know what you know and know what you don't know. And that's fine. We're not expected to know everything. And surround yourself by people that know more than you. It's not an ego thing. People, CEOs, by the way, are generalists pretty much most of the time. And they bring in the right experts.
And I think that's so important. You mentioned ego. I think too often we get too caught up in, our deep down ego, even though we don't want to label it as ego, it 100% is of, oh, if I don't know this, are they going to think I'm an idiot? And it's like, who freaking cares, right? Like, being genuine and being straightforward is more powerful than acting like you know everything. Like at least for me, I respect people most who don't know, because they have the power and the confidence. Like, I have no freaking clue. I want to go find the answer for you.
Yeah.
I think that's super powerful. Would you mind touching base on, you guys had to dissolve a company. I can only imagine how that feels, emotionally and even physically with your lifestyle. How did you kind of bounce out of that? How was your mindset during that time? What did you do to
the one thing, like I mentioned earlier, was my skill set to have really strong relationships. So in the days when we used to call it the Rolodex, we should bring back something called the Rolodex.
Bring it back.
I know you guys are probably even younger.
Bring it back. I love the Rolodex.
You're like, what's a Rolodex? I'm like,
those things are sweet.
Like
I don't have one. I want one. I asked Santa for one of those like 3 years in a row, and I keep, like, year 1 I got coal, year 2 I got coal, and like year 3 I got a pen. So I'm really hoping for a Rolodex from Santa this Christmas.
Yeah.
Just letting you know. I'm just putting it out there.
I'll get you one.
I'm just putting it out there.
I'll get you one. I'm gonna go on eBay. I'm gonna go to the flea market.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
So I think that, you go back when this happens, is I really didn't have a choice. So I sort of was all all in. So okay, for the first time in a long time, because I was an entrepreneur, I was a talent manager, I was an agent, I was a talent manager prior. I saw this big opportunity through creating a TV show set in sports, that there was this niche for marketing to women. So, but my Rolodex was always really strong. So I said, I'm just going to have to bite the bullet. I'm going to have to take a job. But here was the interesting thing. I didn't know if I was worth $50,000 or $1 million to hire. I had no clue what my worth was, which is so interesting, right? So I think realizing, if I were to give advice to other people, is kind of figuring out how to understand your worth, you know? So, you know, I picked up the phone and called, you know, my friends, and I called someone I had met, which is a really interesting story how I met him in particular. I met him when I was doing the sports company. We were at the Plaza for a charity event. And I had done some consulting for a Fortune 500 company called Sendent. And they owned Orbitz, they owned Coldwell Banker. It was a parent company. And someone said, would you like to meet, I won't even give his name, SK, who was the chairman. I'm sure anyone can figure it out, but SK. And I said, yeah, I would love to. You know, I worked for them. I never got a chance to meet him. And so the first thing out of his mouth was, oh my God, I love what you guys are doing. If you ever need anything, let me know. Well, I was in New York, and I picked up the phone at 9 o'clock in the morning, like the minute was a reasonable hour. And it said, I don't know what I need yet, but I need something. But that was my personality. That was my, like, I'm going to go for it. We met while I was in New York, and he ended up being one of my biggest supporters in life. And when I was reaching out to my Rolodex, he had just invested $25 million into a marketing services company. And he said, you would be great to run business development. And it was another proof that I didn't know as much about digital and technology as I should have for the last company. But I said, okay, I'll take it. If I could sell a TV show in very non-tangible items to industries, then I can sell something tangible to chief marketing officers who are creative. And I figured out how to simplify an offering that sounded like a foreign language to me. And that was my gift, right? I sold TV shows. So how do you summarize things very succinct to make them, to be able to monetize on them and to make them sexy? So I turned something really non-sexy to something very sexy. And I sold it to CMOs, and we ended up building that company and killing it and selling it to a consulting firm.
That's awesome. It seems like you just come back, you just know your value, and you know your strength is in emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't necessarily stay there. It seems like you love a good challenge. You love figuring things out, but it's your ability to connect with people that has opened so many doors for you. You say that you invest in some women-centered startups. What are some suggestions you have for folks that are pitching their idea to potential folks that want to help support them? I'm sure you've seen some wonderful pitches, and I'm sure you've seen some that you wish would stop talking.
Yes, and I could talk, so that's a high bar to hit.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say, I think what people don't know is that we really, and most investors invest to founders first. And I think that your product needs to be a good product. Anytime you're selling, your product needs to be good. That's the given. It needs to be interesting and dynamic. But we buy the founder first. You have a great idea, but we don't love you, or we're not trusting you because, you know, maybe we would, like the example before. If you don't know something, just say it. Instant trust, right? So we buy founders first, because even if you have a kernel of an idea and it's a good idea, but we adore you, and we believe in you, and we think you're going to go all the way and you're going to figure it out, even if you need to switch and pivot, you're more likely to get the money than someone with an amazing idea, and we just aren't responding to you. Or you don't have, you know, you potentially don't have that. I know it takes charisma. So maybe you need to find a co-founder that's got the charisma, so you could be the brain side of it. We need to find connection to the founder. You need to simplify your pitch. what ends up happening is we get so caught up in the details and we're not showing who you are. And I think that is the most important part you can do, and be able to tell your project in what we used to call a log line in the entertainment business. But I think what people just get thrown off, there's this saying that says, it's better to go fast than perfect. You want to get, sometimes we're so caught in the minutia, we're losing our je ne sais quoi. We're losing what made it special in the first place, right?
Yeah, it's like that snowball effect, right? Like if you can't get that thing rolling and get it moving in a certain direction, it all starts to fall apart. So that's so important. What are some keys? You're like the human connection expert. You're like you have this innate ability to connect. What are some things that you think and you see from others that are like the top three things? Like obviously like looking someone in the eye, smiling, but what are some other key components of coming across as a founder, as trustworthy, as someone that is competent? Because again, I want to know, because you're the expert here.
It's usually, if you could and I should have said this before, but if you could tell us about yourself and give us your backstory, why you created something, it already sets it up where we feel like we're knowing you. And that you care why you created something, because it's going to solve a problem and how it affected you. Already, that's a head start. When meeting people in general, if you could focus less on what you're selling and more on getting to know someone, that's a value you can't put on anything, because you really already show you care. Right. So if I know something about you, anything about you, you have kids, where do you live? Any trials and tribulations you had. I mean, we all want to be empathetic. We all want to root for people. We all want to find reasons to have a commonality with you. So anytime you can do that in any relationship, one of the other things I advise people on connecting with people is to add value to anyone. You can add value to someone you're selling. And I don't mean add value like, I've got this and it's going to make you a lot of money. That's not what I mean. As far as connecting relationships, adding value is what can I do for you? What can I do for you that's unrelated? If it's, one thing that my grandpa Leonard used to do when I was little is he would see articles that he thought I would respond to or I talked about, and he would fold them in the mail. It's pre-email. Fold them in the mail and put a little smiley on it and send me articles. Something that I do all the time to people. Anytime I've had a conversation with someone and it reminds me of them, I shoot them an article. I make an introduction to someone they can't get to. That's adding huge value, right? So it's knowing that you're thinking about them and you're giving them insight. I always say it's the long game. So if you meet someone and you're doing business with them potentially, and they end up switching careers, well, call me and let me know. Maybe I can make an introduction. Always be willing to introduce people. Be open with your Rolodex, share your connections. Don't feel like you need a piece of every single piece of the pie. Do things because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. And in one of the businesses that I run, it's one of those things. It's mindset, right? Do you think that there's abundance, or do you think there's a limited quantity of available business? Mm-hmm. And I always come from the mindset that if I'm the connections guy, if you call me and I can connect you with anybody within our industry, then I hold a pretty powerful position, and everything seems to come back to you, even though you have connected an outside company to this one or that one. They always think of you as the hub. You're the business creator. You're the center of commerce. And so it's so important that adding value piece, if you could just introduce somebody to somebody they can't get to on each call, so you'd be wildly successful, right? And holding that Rolodex close to your heart and say, no, I don't want my business to suffer because I sent you here, or I sent you that name, or I sent you that list, or whatever it may be. Obviously, there's a fine line there, and you can't help hold people's hand the entire time. But those simple keys of adding value are so important.
Absolutely. I think that's the point of when you build relationships. And if you're building, there's one thing networking, and then there's connecting. And you can't even add value to them unless you're really connecting with them. So if you make it like, how can I add value to this person? You better do some digging and get to know them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can always bring things back into the classroom. I can't teach anybody anything until I start to understand their background.
Exactly.
How they learn, what reading level they're at, what they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with. And I think the same, everything in the classroom directly correlates in the business world, and in introductions and emotional intelligence. You can go down the line and figure out who's successful in the classroom is usually somebody who can be successful in other aspects of their life.
I'm sure it would be interesting, like as a teacher. I mean, the teachers got a kick out of me. It wasn't mean I was getting great grades, but they really liked me. Because you see the students that like may not have been as book smart, but you knew they were going to be really successful because the way they interact with the other students. And it's not like they're being a jerk, just the way they interact.
Oh yeah, I can automatically, when people come, like grades aside, completely grades aside, when somebody walks in the door, we have our first conversation or something like that, you'll be all right, kid. Like you will be just fine in this world, because the emotional intelligence, like it's just like you can see it, you can hear it, you can feel it. It just feels like it's a normal conversation. When some of the other students, it's like, I don't know what you're saying. Like this conversation is so broken. I have no clue what you're trying to convey. And that's definitely a gift. I want to switch gears a little bit, Tami, and start talking a little bit about your chapter in the book that's coming out September 1st, How to Be Crazy, Amazing in Difficult Times. It seems like you've had a lot of ups and you've had a few downs. What was your chapter about in that book, How to Be Crazy, Amazing in Difficult Times?
Well, when you get asked to write a book or participate in a book, why expert to participate in this book, right? I mean, it's only natural to second guess ourselves, or you're not human.
Right? It's like, yeah, I'll do it. Here we go.
Okay, now what? I do acknowledge that I wasn't sure that I was quite qualified to help people through difficult times. However, I do lead with empathy in my life. And I lead with heart. And you can't go wrong if you lead with heart. So what can we do as people when people are struggling during difficult times, maybe a pandemic, maybe a loss, maybe a divorce, maybe you lost being a person, or you lost your job, etc. What can you do as people in your life to be empathetic to the people that are going through it? And what I do know is that we all process it differently. So we have to be very self-aware in our empathy as well, because it's not about us. It's about their feelings. So I go through, empathy, and as my style of writing is I use humor and then serious. That's just my style. I don't know if you guys, which has always been my style of writing, but it was really interesting because I read a book which to me was game changing, and you guys might have read it, but people have been telling me to read it for a long time, and I bought it pre-COVID, but read it during COVID. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Heard of it. On the list.
It is on the list. It is not on the bookshelf, but it is on the list.
I am so excited for you to go read it. We need a recap. We need a book review. But,
nice. Could we could do like a post. You've already read it?
I read it.
Okay. So we couldn't do like an active book club or anything like that?
I will read it. I will lead it. Well, I will tell you, some of the takeaways from this. Yeah. And I think that when you're going through difficult times, I even think his book is something to go read. If you're depressed, I was telling a friend that I read the book during this time yesterday, who's a really successful entrepreneur. I mean, he sold his company for $900 million, the most grounded sweetheart of a guy. We met when he had just launched the company, ended up selling. And we were talking about that book, and he said anytime he gets a little depressed, he still picks up the book and he buys it as gifts. But using a sense of humor, he was a Holocaust survivor, and he was a psychologist during the Holocaust. And then it really ends up being more of a self-help book. But I would say the key takeaways are using humor, because it's the ultimate unifier and it gets you through anything. There's always dark in the light. That's why we tell funny stories at a funeral, right? You need to find the humor to get through things. Another one was finding the beauty in everything. So when he was leaving one camp to go to the next camp, you know, thinking to die, right? They looked at the mountains in Austria and they were so beautiful, and finding the beauty in things. The other was having a purpose in life to go home to, and love. So, you know, those are some of the key things. And it's really interesting how much that can get you through a difficult time. So that, you know, I do quote him in the book, but the book is, I mean, the chapter is not all about him, but I thought about him when I was writing it.
I think you touched on empathy and really understanding it. And it's something I kind of want to dig a little deeper into and talk about. I think we get so caught up in trying to listen to respond that we don't listen to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And we get caught up in, oh, I'm so sorry for you, man. Like, that's awful. But are you really sorry? Like, do you really truly understand? Like, have you put yourself in that position or in that person's shoes to fully understand their situation, how they could see it? I'm not saying that we need to dive into their problems with them and fight the fight for them. But just to truly get into it, and fully understand, hey, I don't know how you feel. I can only imagine. But after kind of imagining your situation and getting a picture from your view, holy shit, that's awful. And I just think it's such a mindset thing. And I think it's something that we really overlook.
Rolzman, you're nailing it.
Get him,
Rolzman. Rolzman. Yes, I think that's it. I think that's the key. I think we want to fix the problem and their pain so quickly that we want to relate to them instead of really understanding where they're coming from. And that's a natural reaction. I think saying something versus not saying something, I mean, it's okay. And we don't have to be perfect in our empathy, but we have to show up. But some of the common mistakes, I think, when people are trying to be empathetic is they make it about them, right? Oh, well, my father died. They all of a sudden it's about when their father died. And the example I used in the book was, we don't all go through the same experience if our father dies. I'll give an example. Maybe someone's father they had the best relationship ever, and he was the daddy's girl and looked up to the father. And then maybe the father was not present and was very disconnected and was not around father. And they had a very different relationship. So how could you be empathetic to the same, you think it's the same exact situation, but it's entirely different, right? They're going to process things differently when that really wasn't present versus a parent that is, you looked up to like God, right?
And I think going even deeper, it's something I actually wrote a little bit about in my chapter, is that somebody, I could lose my father and you could lose your job. And that could feel the exact same to both of us because, right, it's all relative, right? Like loss and things that happen in our life, it's all relative. And I think we get too caught up in, oh, I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and you're only going through X. It's like, that doesn't matter, right? Because it's all relative to the person, what they're going through, their mindset. And we get so caught up in, this tit for tat type of game that we kind of lose the understanding of everybody's life is relative. Something that can be detrimental to you might just be a little bump in the road.
Right. All feelings are valid. That's right. All feelings are valid, and they're not a comparison. And how we process loss is different for every single person. It could feel the same kind of pain for different people, but it's hard to say, oh, well, you're going to be okay and you're going to be this, but no, this is how I feel. So you're not getting it, right? So the advice for empathy can cross over. You just need to understand it's their feelings. They're not your feelings.
Right. And I think some of where this comes from is, I don't know if people are fearful to show empathy or what it is. I guess how does fear play a role in your life?
like anything else, I'm fearful. I mean, I talk about this really openly. Like, I have imposter syndrome. So in business, that can feel debilitating. On the same time, maybe it's possible people have imposter syndrome because they're always pushing themselves to the next level. It works different ways, but it's not something that actually goes away from me. People could tell me, "Are you crazy?" They're flattering me with all these great things. But that doesn't matter how I feel inside. I feel scared. I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like I'm going to be a fake and a fraud. So how does fear play in? Fear could play in a lot of ways. You're feared. So fear for work or fear for taking a chance is that I don't understand why. Can I pull this off? Can I do this? In business potentially. In personal, I think fear in empathy during difficult times, I think you're feared that you're going to say the wrong thing, so you don't say anything. I'd rather people flounder and try to say something and realize foot and mouth and course correct, or learn as they go.
So do you, like, when you're advising or when you're trying to help somebody and they're just like, Tami, I can't do this, I'm way too scared. Are you more of the mindset of just like, go and figure it out, or like do your homework and then take baby steps? Because I know, at least for me, I don't know about Kyle, I'm like, let's go and crash and just like fix the car and just keep going.
I think it's a combination. I think what I do is assess what they know. And most of the time they know more than they are giving themselves credit for. So how do I help position them and give them the confidence they need to take to the next level? I think speed is more important than perfection, right? So we can, because we're going to learn along the way anyway. We spend so much time preparing, and then we still have to learn it when we get there. So you could course correct and make some decisions, and it's okay, because you're going to still make mistakes even when you put all the work into it. It's still going to happen. So you're better off going out there, making some mistakes, and then quickly making those changes. But I see pitches and I'm always like, okay, this is good enough to go out with. But we get to that perfection is paralyzing. And I always say it's a work in progress. This is going to change every day, your materials. So.
And I think I want to go just a touch deeper on something you brought up, is that you know more than you think you know.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. We as humans, not only do we like first doubt ourselves, because that's like the, first instinct of caution, but you truly do. Like I feel like as humans, we underestimate what we know because we're fearful of getting like called out for something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially in kind of business world, pitch a couple weeks ago to a large customer, and I wasn't shaking, but I was like, all right, like, this is interesting. And at the end of the day, like, your product than anybody else does. So your fear of, oh my gosh, what if they ask me this? What if they ask me that? Like, you're the one that, like, it's your product, right? Like, they don't know. And like, the other thing is, they don't know what they don't know. And that's the same thing true to yourself, is you don't know what you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, why be fearful, I guess?
I think we all forget we're humans first, and they have the same insecurities we do. I've gone through so many exercises with friends that times in their life they became a CEO of a major corporation, and we would go through the pros and cons list because they were scared that they weren't going to be able to deliver, right? But in that case, yeah, I mean, you probably have imposter syndrome, but so do they. 70% of successful people have imposter syndrome, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you probably never had imposter syndrome in your life, it probably means you weren't taking the chances. So it's not a negative thing, but it's something I live with, and I can't sometimes when I get feedback about myself, I'm like, I fooled them. Oh, he said. That's like my first reaction. I fooled him.
Oh yeah, I get that too. You're so nice. You're so nice. Just like, oh, okay.
I'm
Okay.
all, did I give you a cocktail?
Yeah, it's like, did I send you a cocktail before we got on that call or what?
It's like, everything's great.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit. I love asking this specific question because it plays a huge role in my life. Do you need a little bit of fear in what you're doing? Do you need visions? And yeah, do you need a vision that is big and so big that you do have a little fear when you're starting it? You do have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Do you operate on that wavelength, or how do you set goals big enough so you're proud of yourself each and every day?
The fear is interesting. I tell other people, so I can tell it through telling them, or I see it in myself all the time, and it's something my mom had said to me years ago, which is stuck with me. When I was doing a big step for something, I said, well, I'm really nervous. I mean, I'm like scared. She's like, well, I would be more worried if you weren't scared. So I think that we should be fearful of a big step we're taking and a risk we're taking. That's a natural reaction. So I think that fear could drive you, right? And failure can drive you, right? I had a chapter in my first book called Failing Up. I think failure leads you to your stepping stones and gives you that experience you need to potentially do it better, or just take a chance. It definitely leads you to something else, right? Or if it's reprocessing what you thought was the right thing and moving on to something that was better. But as far as fear goes, I think it could be a driver, but I also think if you're not scared, then you're probably not pushing yourself enough.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If it doesn't start some butterflies in my stomach, or, if it doesn't get me crazy excited to get going, I just don't do it. We started this podcast about 3 months ago. And it's funny, you would think I just walk into my office and I'm calm as a cookie. Some days I have to take a couple walks around the block. I have to do my breathing exercises. And it doesn't even matter who the guest is. It could be a huge guest for us, or just one of my friends. Even I think interviewing my friends is probably the hardest part. But I think I know that I'm on the right track. And Jake has said the same thing. Is just like, yeah, if it creates a little bit of little anxiety, a little craziness, a little uptick in the heart rate, like, you're on the right path. Obviously there's a dichotomy there, and you don't want to go off the cliff of anxiety and hating what you do. But I think I've always been told that anxiety, or that upped level, that upped heartbeat, when you start to get into, or start to get close into fight or flight, that's just the extra energy you need to deliver your message.
It's interesting you should say that. I've been approached a few times. People want me to be the co-host because I'm a little unpredictable, and the funny thing.
No.
So, and one of the reasons I've been staying away from it is, ironically enough, even putting out a book and becoming a little more of a tiny bit of a public figure, teeny tiny, is that I hate hearing myself on camera. I mean, I don't like listening to myself. I have a hard time. It's like torture for me. So it's one of the reasons I stayed away. And I also love bringing other people up and having them be the center of attention. So if I could, believe it or not, I get my, if they're successful, I'm successful. So I get attention. I mean, I get really good attention by bringing others up. But maybe that's the way I could use the podcast in the right way. Maybe one day I'll be able to tell you guys I'm doing it, and you'll be proud.
Yes.
How do you two know each other? Can I ask that question?
Say that again, Tami.
How do you guys know each other? I'm all about relationships, and if I don't know how you two know each other, then I haven't done my job.
This is the best heartwarming story you will ever hear, Tami. I used to be Jake's teacher.
I love that more than life. I love it on Wednesday morning.
I was teaching at St. Helens High School. It's just outside of Portland, Oregon. And Jake was probably a junior, came rolling into my class, probably with a hat backwards and a poor attitude. And that was it. He was he's a farm kid selling. Jake, what all different types of animals did you raise and sell? And he had his own food cart by 17 or 18. I mean, his story's crazy.
Yeah. I think by the time we met, I was raising pigs and chickens. I was involved in 4-H. I would grow like 7 pigs at a time and about 100 to 200 chickens at a time. Had my own little business raising and selling that, and actually started. This kind of sounds a little gory, but butchering the animals for not only myself, but for all the kids in the industry too. And then I just had this knack for I loved events because I grew up. Every year I was at the county fair. I was there showing my pigs. And I loved the fair scene. It was just fun. And I wanted to be that, and so I started a food truck. And we just toured around Oregon, Southwest Washington, going to all these different fairs, festivals. And that's kind of where I was in high school. And then I walked in.
As a Jewish girl, everything is better with bacon. Sorry, other people that don't eat bacon.
So good.
My tribe that don't eat bacon, everything's better with bacon. I hope there was lots of bacon on the food truck.
That sounds really, really good right now. That's awesome. But that's how we know each other. And it's kind of like, it's kind of an extension of the learning here. And I think teachers think that, as a teacher, you teach all of the lessons. But it's funny, all the lessons that Jake has taught me over the years with his successes and his failures. And so he's an amazing co-host on the show. And we're texting each other back and forth, and we celebrate each other's successes, and we have empathy with each other when things aren't going so well. So it's always amazing to work together, and I think we'll be working together for many, many years to come on random projects and things that give us energy. So that's how we know each other, Tami.
I love that.
All right. So as we're wrapping this thing up, do you have one tip that you could give someone that is just starting out with their business idea, or they're just starting to get their feet wet, maybe just got a business license? What's the number one tip you have for entrepreneurs that are just getting started?
I mean, it's a weird time right now because of what's going on in the environment with COVID. But putting yourself out there to events or joining as many webinars or interactive Zooms, I would say at the moment, is getting to know as many people in the community of the business you're going in, and really go for it. You're not going to get anything unless you ask. So you could shoot really high up. When I first started my talent management company and I was starting to work in television, I knew people in film, but I didn't know people in television. I would literally just call the president of the studio or the CEO. And realize that people don't really want to miss opportunities, and you really just have to ask for time to spend with them. And then of course try to humanize everything you're doing, and people first mentality, and help your peers that you're going to meet during this process of figuring out how to start your company and grow your company are going to end up being your lifelong friends. And don't look at anyone ever as competition. There's enough space for everyone in the business. Learn from everyone, ask questions, be curious, and lead with your heart.
Man, Tami, there's so much gold in this episode. Thank you so much for dropping that gold to our listeners and viewers. And again, thank you for being here. In order to grow the podcast, we need your help. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, and tell a friend about every episode you find value in, and share the episode on your favorite social media platform. If you liked the episode, please rate the episode and leave us a review. You can find us at Against All Average on all of your favorite social media platforms, and at againstallaverageCom. Another big shout out to myself, Kyle Tolzman, and Tami Holzman, and Jake Rolzman, in this episode's sponsor, Fame Pro Services. And with that, we thank you for listening to the Against All Average podcast. We'll see you next time.